The House is voting on a speaker in just a few hours. Current Speaker Mike Johnson needs to win the support of nearly every Republican to keep his job. Joining us now, Jake Sherman, co-founder of Punchbowl News, and also on NBC and MSNBC, a political contributor. Is this the same that it used to be, or is it different now with Trump in the background, Jake? Do you think Johnson goes down and doesn't get it?
It's worse than it used to be, actually, Joe, because he's already lost one vote. That's Tom Massey of Kentucky, right, who says he will not vote for him. So he could lose one more. Effectively, there's other ways he could, if people vote present, it's different than voting for somebody else, but it's no different. Remember, Donald Trump endorsed Paul Ryan, who ended up leaving. He endorsed Kevin McCarthy, who ended up getting thrown out. He's endorsed Mike Johnson, who has a dozen or so lawmakers against him. Donald Trump also last week, 2 weeks ago, I guess it was at this point, endorsed lifting the debt limit, a completely legitimate request. And 38 Republicans voted against that on the House floor after Mike Johnson executed on that request. There's no question, Joe, that Donald Trump is an incredibly powerful figure in the Republican Party. I mean, that goes without saying. He's going to be president in however many days, 17 days. He doesn't have, on internal House matters, he has not had the sway that he does in other realms of his power matrix, let's say. And I don't know if he goes down. I do think he's at incredible risk of losing the speakership because he just needs one more no vote, one more. And he says he's not negotiating on the internal mechanisms, the internal machinations of the House of Representatives.
Does it matter who they... Let's say there's five that go. If is the one who goes first and get tarnished with that, and will President Trump be,
it's funny that you mentioned that. I went down the list yesterday alphabetically because it goes alphabetically. Everyone's sitting on the floor. The chair calls the person's name, and they say they're either voting for Johnson, Hakeem Jeffries, or somebody else. But no, it's just a matter of the alphabet. But listen, if we get an early no in the B's, Eric Burleson of Missouri is one that I'm looking out for. It's over for Johnson, at least on the first ballot. And here's the thing, Joe. They could go to another ballot. You'll recall Kevin McCarthy went 15 ballots back in 2023. But the question to me, and I don't know the answer to this, the question to me is, does Donald Trump at some point say, this dude is not going to win, we need to go to a plan B? And then what does that plan B look like? That is not clear to me, because then you get into all these warring factions in the House Republican Conference of Steve Scalise versus Jim Jordan, Tom Emmer, all of these people who have long-standing relationships, let's say, and who don't get along terribly well on these kinds of matters.
So that's where we'd be back talking about those three guys again. There's only so many.
I don't know who else. I didn't know who else it would be. I mean, Mike Johnson was not an obvious speaker choice. But let me put it this way, Joe. It doesn't really matter who the speaker is, because Donald Trump is going to control everything, and they are going to do exactly what Donald Trump says. This isn't the 1980s where the House is really its own body that executes on its own priorities independent of the White House. In a trifecta where the president controls the president's party controls the House and the Senate, they're going to do whatever Donald Trump says. So the question is, who could get to 218 with the least amount of pain, the most amount of ease, and quickest, so they could get to January 6th, where they're going to have to certify the presidential election, and January 20th, when they're going to have a new president who is hungry for things like tax cuts, border, energy, and all the priorities that he ran on and he rightfully wants to get executed in the first 6 months to a year of his presidency.